Today, the Senate Ethics Committee released a 68-page report on their investigation into now former Senator John Ensign of Nevada, along with referrals for prosecution to the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission. They also did this.
Ethics Committee rules make clear that whenever its members have, quote, reason to believe, unquote, that a violation of law has occurred, we, quote, shall, unquote, report it to the proper authorities. Our special counsel, Carol Elder Bruce, has written a report that speaks in great detail about her findings, and that report has been released today.
The report clearly indicates that the Senate committee did not act on what it thought, or an opinion, or a whim. It acted on facts determined through hundreds of interviews, 500,000 documents that were examined, and testimony that came to our committee.
These findings are so disturbing that she believed that had Senator Ensign not resigned, and had we been able to proceed to that adjudicatory phase, that the evidence of Senator Ensign's wrongdoing would have been substantial enough to warrant the consideration of expulsion, the harshest penalty available to the Ethics Committee and the Senate. And that is why, when former Senator Ensign resigned, the Vice Chairman and I put out a statement, and we said that he had made, quote, the appropriate decision, unquote.
Senators Barbara Boxer of California and Johnny Isakson of Georgia, Democrat and Republican, chair and vice chair, respectively, of the Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee is made up of exactly equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats, and that committee voted unanimously to release this scathing report today that alleges wrongdoing and rule-breaking and potentially illegal behavior on the part of now former Republican Senator John Ensign of Nevada. Senator Ensign, you may remember, very conveniently resigned effective the day before he was due to be deposed as part of this investigation. From the written report released by the special counsel today, we learn a lot more than we ever knew about this scandal before. What the special counsel alleges in this report is worse than what was previously known. We learn about how deeply implicated Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn was in the payoff effort to cover up the affair. We learn very, very granular detail about how C Street and the secretive religious group known as the Family tried to manage the end of the affair to protect Senator Ensign, in effect. We learn that the senator and his office took specific official actions on policy matters because of the affair and the payoff and the cover-up. We get the evidence that Senator Ensign's explanation for that $96,000 payoff after the affair, his explanation was not only a lie, it was a lie that he made his parents swear to in a way that may have legally implicated them. We learn that Senator Ensign's wife is the one who contacted the woman the senator was sleeping with to tell her she was being fired because of the affair. We learn that the woman Senator Ensign was sleeping with did not want to be sleeping with him. She repeatedly tried to stop the affair, and the pressure to continue it derived from Senator Ensign being her employer and her husband's employer and the sole source of financial support for her now broken apart family. And we learn all of this in a format that reads like a screenplay for a riveting and tragic movie. John Ensign's wife is high school friends with Cindy Hampton. Cindy Hampton was a bridesmaid at the Ensign's wedding. Cindy's husband, Doug, and John Ensign become best golfing buddies. That's page 7. Page 8, John Ensign rises to become the #4 ranking Republican in the U.S. Senate, living at C Street and taking on one of the leaders of the Family as his spiritual advisor. John Ensign travels to Iowa. He is considered a future presidential contender for the Republican Party. Pages 9 and 10, the Hampton family is totally financially dependent on John Ensign. Ensign giving them tens of thousands of dollars worth of loans, propping up their mortgage on a home down the block from John Ensign that they could not afford on their own. John Ensign even paying the private school tuition for the Hamptons' kids, paying for their family vacations. Both of the Hamptons are employed by Senator Ensign. The affair, of course, will end all of that. When the affair ends, both Hamptons lose their jobs. They end up losing their home. And the senator, classy guy, stops paying the Hampton children's school tuition that he had been paying. Page 11, the affair. Senator Ensign described as relentless, persistent, He just wouldn't stop and kept calling and calling and would never take no for an answer. Quote, Ms. Hampton ultimately yielded to Senator Ensign's pleas. Page 12, the affair discovered. Quote, Mr. Hampton found out about the affair, listen to this, on December 23, 2007, while he and his wife were on the way to the airport to pick up their son for the holidays. Senator Ensign was in a separate car on the way to the airport to greet the Hampton son as well. While waiting in his car as Ms. Hampton went to pick up their son's girlfriend from her home on the way to the airport, Mr. Hampton saw that his wife left her cell phone in the car. And he viewed a text message from Senator Ensign to Ms. Hampton that made clear an affair was occurring. How wonderful it is, scared but excited. When Ms. Hampton came back to the car, Mr. Hampton stated, I know what you and John are doing. Mr. Hampton then called Senator Ensign and said that he knew what was happening. Senator Ensign did not inform his wife at the time. When the cars were parked in the airport parking lot, Mr. Hampton jumped out of his car and chased Senator Ensign in the airport parking lot. Ms. Hampton went into the airport and sat there for hours. Ms. Hampton later took a taxi back to her home. That's 2 days before Christmas. The two families then spend Christmas together. And Senator Ensign pledges it's all over, it was all a big mistake. But by January, he is pursuing Cindy Hampton again. Cindy Hampton is described in the report as despondent over this, but she goes along. Her family is 100% financially dependent on John Ensign, so she goes along. He gives her thousands of dollars in cash to pay for hotel rooms that he has her book in her own name for their liaisons. At the C Street-sponsored National Prayer Breakfast, he tells her he wants to marry her. He makes $1,000 worth of phone calls to her during a congressional delegation he's on to Iraq. He lists her as Aunt Judy in his cell phone to cover up all the calls he's making to her. It does not work, this cover-up. Senator Tom Coburn lives with Senator Ensign in C Street. The husband of Cindy Hampton asks Tom Coburn and 3 of the leaders of the family in C Street to tell John Ensign that the affair needs to stop. John Ensign says, okay, the affair will stop, but he does not stop. 2 days after their intervention, Tim Coe, one of the leaders of the family at C Street, gets a call from Cindy's husband again saying he spotted his wife's car and John Ensign's car both parked at the same time in a motel parking lot in Summerlin, Nevada. Tim Coe calls Senator Ensign on Ensign's cell phone and tells him, I know exactly where you are. I know exactly what you are doing. Put your pants on and go home. Senator Ensign initially says he would not leave the hotel room, telling Mr. Coe, I can't. I love her. And so the next day, John Ensign fired her husband. After this affair with Cindy Hampton, John Ensign fired her husband, cut off Cindy's kids' school tuition that he'd been paying, and then Senator Ensign's wife fired Cindy herself. The rest of the report details